All right, I'd like to welcome everybody back to our another webinar with Matt and I for Full Spectrum Defense and FSD Nation. So Matt, just a quick little intro on your background there again as to where your expertise lies, and we'll get started from there.
Sure. As a child, I started up in the traditional martial arts that everyone does, Bruce Lee movies and Wing Chun Kung Fu. Then I slowly got into boxing. I had about, in boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai. Between my semi-pro and amateur fights, I had 84 fights. And then, of course, that's how we ended up meeting years and years ago.
Yeah.
And then eventually that led me to working with the military for almost 20 years and being attached to our version of Special Forces and Close Protection and the Special Forces Military Police. And I just retired a year ago.
Perfect. So, awesome. And I guess for myself, I think both of us I've been training for over 35 years now. I think you probably about the same amount of time training, just different areas. So, I started out in Goju karate when I was 16 and kind of ventured into a whole bunch of different things. I've been pretty fortunate to train with some pretty top end people throughout North America, which has been great. So then we're kind of collaborating and putting stuff together, which is really good. So we're gonna work into our topic tonight, which is dangerous personalities. And there's 4 basic personalities we're going to talk about. So we have narcissistic personality, emotionally unstable personality, the paranoid personality, and then the last one is the predator. So we're going to kind of go through each one, and we'll just chat about it a little bit, and then we can add some stuff from there. I found these really interesting because in the self-defense world, we deal with people on a physical level, but if we understand more of what's going on their emotionally psychological level, maybe we can help people understand their own situation before they actually become physical. So a lot of the reference from this night is from the Joe Navarro book, Dangerous Personalities, just so everybody knows. Matt and I are not clinical psychologists, so we're just going through stuff. I'm just trying to help everybody out so that you get some ideas on what you can look for in situations that are maybe potentially going bad from more of a mental state before they go to a physical state. Because not all of these personalities will become physical if things go bad, but some of them definitely will, and they all have the potential to. So, yeah. All right. Oh, shoot. Hold on. What did I do here? There. All right. So we're going to start out with the narcissistic personality. So this one is, we all know, I've heard of narcissists or know of them. And the thing that was really cool about this book was at the end of each chapter, there'd be like a 60 or 65 question I think you can fill out to see if some of you know or some of you know of falls into the category of one of these personalities. So if they hit at the top end of the spectrum, you're going to be checking off a lot of boxes. At the lower end of the spectrum, maybe not so much, and there's kind of not so much of a concern. But narcissistic people, they basically care for themselves only, for their needs and priorities. They'll lie, cheat, connive, establish the truth, or to scheme things to get ahead from themselves. So they're kind of all about themselves to get ahead. This isn't necessarily a violent personality, but they want to be in control.
Do you think anyone famous would fit this narrative so people can get like an idea of someone that would even if they're faking the acting, like even if it's a fake personality trait?
Well, we all go into the I think that the first one that comes to mind is probably like a Donald Trump, that kind of personality. I don't, people like that. I think back to maybe back further in history. Look to people like maybe Adolf Hitler.
Do you think Hollywood actors would be a narcissistic, or would that be something else?
I think some of them definitely could fall into there, but yeah. You have any ideas?
No, that's why. Because I personally don't consider my immediate instinct of a narcissistic personality being dangerous.
No,
but I could see getting other people around them in trouble. Like I've had friends that I would consider narcissistic that have caused problems in real life situations,
right,
where they didn't take the responsibility at the time or cause fights or and things like that. And that's just interesting. So yeah, actually, yeah, I have a story for this off camera. Remind me when I see you in a few weeks.
So we have the only thing I wrote down here is that they don't care how others are affected by what they do. Right, their goal is to get ahead. A perfect example, I guess. Go back to, think of Cinderella and her evil stepsisters. Right, she did everything for them. The stepsisters didn't care about her at all. it was all about them getting ahead. So if we look back to it like a nice fairy tale, right, that kind of tells it all right there. You know, they'll overvalue themselves, right, and then undervalue others to make themselves look better. They have pretty much no empathy, right, and they're, you know, full of arrogance and entitlement as well. Just some of the traits that they kind of fall under. I just wrote a few down. They'll violate boundaries and break rules. So a lot of times they think that the rules don't apply to them, and they'll kind of push through that. You know, and then I put down, you know, what it can do to you, like what it can do, how it can affect us, right? And you know, they show no affection. So over time, that will definitely play on our mental how we feel mentally, right? They won't validate anything you do. So you could do some great stuff, and in the end, they don't care. They don't really give a shit, because it doesn't maybe value them, or it doesn't make them any better. So they're not going to care for it, right? So, you know, I think the big thing to take away from this is just to understand, and the book goes way deeper into this than I'm going to right now, but just understanding what that personality is, and then understanding to set boundaries with it. All right. So if you're involved with that person, like in a relationship, or maybe it's an employer or employee, it could even be a friend, right? Just the boundaries need to be set so that you know kind of know what's going on. Because I mean, there's obviously extremes to all of these personalities, right? On a very low end, I think a lot of people fall under some of these traits for narcissistic. I mean, it becomes part of maybe what you do or who you are, but you know, it's when it becomes extreme, I think it makes it get worse.
I just realized that fighters, myself included, probably are narcissistic when it comes to the entertainment value of the sport, because it really is entertainment, like WWE, even though it has real application to real life and it starts off the basis of martial art, it really is a combative sport. It's not martial arts. And some of the most famous people, Muhammad Ali, Conor McGregor, Chael Sonnen, Floyd Mayweather, are the most narcissistic people on the planet. So yeah, you made me register that. If you think about people that are dangerous, but the most famous people are narcissistic.
Yes.
Yeah, like especially in that aspect, because you said Donald Trump, but definitely a Conor McGregor, even though I love the guy as a fighter, right. I think he's hilarious. Definitely narcissistic though. Like, yeah, so it's interesting.
It's all about personal gain, right? So that kind of breaks down the narcissistics. Now we're going to go into the emotionally unstable one, or emotionally, yeah. This one's kind of interesting. So there's some key traits here. You know, they're persuasive, emotionally instability. They're marked by behaviors that will affect their well-being with relationships and interactions with others. They are unpredictable, and it can move from one end of the spectrum to the other as far as moods go, right? And that can really play as well. So one day they can be super happy, and the next moment they're the darkest cloud in the room, right? So that can be part of it as well. They can be talented, charming, stimulating, and seductive, but you know, they can turn hostile, right, impulsive, or even irrational within the same amount of time, right? And some of these disorders, you know, they play into all things that, you know, from psychological standpoints, but we're not going to get into any of that. But we can see in situations where this would become a problem from a self-defense point of view, especially if it was possibly like in a relationship, right? Because if you're constantly dealing with that high and low, right, you never know what you're going to kind of get, and you got to protect yourself from that. You know, so some of the reasons for this disorder can be neurological, biological, right? It can be past trauma, it can be abuse, drug use, you know, personal independence, right, or indifference, sorry. And no one really knows for certain what causes it, because everybody's a bit different with their triggers, right? And it can cause different things to happen. So, you know, when you don't know people, you don't know what their past is, you don't know what's going to dig up, and you don't know what's going to maybe cause that flip side effect.
I also felt this was the #1 trait for men in prison.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
But I believe that was stated a few times. I mean, because that's how they ended up there anyway, making emotionally wrong decisions.
Yeah.
For the violent acts. Yeah, so definitely that would be right now. That's leaning to more of my most dangerous. Because when I think about the narcissistic personality, there's a lot of excellence that can be driven out of the driving force.
Yes.
Because you want to be seen, which means you could be dedicated at the same time. It has a lot of bad ones when you spin it, but I can see a lot of positive aspects to a narcissistic personality. But emotional, I see more negative than positive.
But it says right here that over time they'll drain you emotionally to the point where you're no longer capable of empathy or love of yourself. So it can be a major thing if you're constantly in it, and they'll kind of beat you down that way. It strains relationships for families and friends, co-workers, managers, or basically anybody that's around them. At work, you want to tip around these personalities, and same way if you're at home. So if you have that kind of thing, same thing in a relationship, it will make it tough to keep it positive.
She's over here. She can't hear what we're saying. I'm just teasing.
And they're and they can be hypersensitive, right? So all these things will play into it. They can be needy and demanding. They have no boundaries. And we all met people or know people or heard of people that fall in these categories, and sometimes if they get the help that they need, if they understand what's going on, but that doesn't always happen, right? And without they can be manipulative, like irrational, reckless, impulsive. Like there's lots of things that fall into these categories, and the reason for doing this is so people can hear this and maybe take a look and maybe dig a little deeper into if something isn't going so good in their life, and see if they can figure out what's causing that. So, but I think that, like you said, I think the emotionally unstable personality is one of the key personalities that we deal with on a more regular basis. Just different ends of the spectrum as far as how much or how little that might be. So, and then when we get into the paranoid personality, so again, this is number 3. This one's actually interesting because it was different than I kind of thought in my head. These people are consumed by irrational mistrust and fear. They can be judgmental. They're biased. They're uptight. Like they're not rational in some things that they think. They see only basically they only see a cloud around them. There's never an ounce of positive. So anything that's going on, it's always bad, right? Even if you do something nice for them, they'll try to figure out what the agenda was behind it to make sure it goes really bad from there. So there's not a whole lot of positive. And then some of the traits for paranoid personalities, like easily insulted, argumentative, they're jealous, they'll question motives, they'll hold grudges for a long time or maybe forever. They challenge rules, fears, dislikes, or hates for they hate for people who are, and they don't like people who are different. So they're very narrow-minded, narrow-thoughted, but it really can play on people because they'll also try to drag you into that. So yeah, and so sometimes on the extreme end of it, they can be anti-government, anti-law enforcement. Basically, they think that no laws or anything apply to them, and they're not rational in their thought process as to what they're kind of doing with it. And we've seen a lot of this in the last couple of years. I mean, there's lots of rational thinking. There's been lots of irrational thinking. We could probably debate on that for an hour, but I think just to keep it super simple, just knowing that these things are there, and then you can kind of see it's completely, and paranoid personalities can also become pretty abusive and pretty physical.
Interesting. I was watching a podcast about a man from Germany, I forget his name right now, about mass manipulation and how it actually happens in history. But then he brought it into the COVID, and he said to get the country to conform to what you need, you only need 35% of the population to follow it religiously.
Right.
It would be like someone in their mask wearing it in the car or something like that. Mm-hmm. But and then 60% or 65% would be it's better to go along and play along and cause problems. So they're kind of neutral. 35, right. And then 5% will be fighting back, but you can't win with the 5%. And that's how everything happened from the World War II with the Nazis and Germans, and right to we are now. It's interesting. And I wonder if that much population is the fearful personality, because the people that went hard, went really hard, like, wanting to hurt people that didn't get vaccinated. Like, it was weird that it was so polarizing.
It was super, yeah. So yeah. I wrote some cool examples there too. So, somebody that has that paranoid personality. So if they get cut off from their vehicle, they think it was done intentionally every time.
Right? Oh, yeah, so they are violent.
Yeah, it was never an accident, right? So it was, they think everything is, if they have a wife or a girlfriend, they think everybody's staring at their wife or girlfriend and trying to date them or take them out, right? They frequently have grievances at work. right? And then they continually wonder why they're not getting ahead in the workplace, right? So they're always kind of fighting the structure, right? And then this is an interesting one. So a former employee or boyfriend or girlfriend is angry about the treatment they received, and then they just magically show up at work or the house with an armed weapon, right? So and they will use it depending on where they're at in their state of mind, right? And these personalities are sometimes more than cranky. Like they'll take it to the next level and not think about it, right? They'll show up at demonstrations just to make a point, to be seen and heard, right? They can be physical by pushing others, blocking cars, damaging property. They're always very close to being visible, right? And they just need that trigger to kind of get it going on, right? And sometimes they are the trigger. So I thought that was interesting for that.
Especially because we're living in the world with Antifa in the States.
Yes.
That sounds like that personality trait would be dominant in that kind of ideology.
Yeah, it breaks down so much in here, and it just helps for an understanding of taking a look at things a little bit differently, right? The other things I put down was they're hyper suspicious, they're fearful, they're secretive, right? Almost anything can be a trigger. It depends on the paranoia of the individual. So it could be depending on like people, races, policies, research, religion, anything along those lines can also be part of things that will set them off, right? Yeah, so that kind of breaks it down. I said to you, like, paranoid individuals, can be violent, right? And should be, they, when you look at mass shootings and stuff in the States, they don't make the correlation between the two, but a lot of it goes back to this type of personality where they've been, pissed off by something. Like really, you get goes postal at where he works from, or they go do a school shooting or something like that, and they're road rage, and they're trying to make a point.
Do you think modern medication, and I'm not an expert in this area, I'm only shooting the shit, just asking questions. Yeah. Do they push people, like if you're on any SSRIs or anything, do they push you down the further traits in a negative capacity? Because we have a crisis of people on those kind of medications, and then we have things like the school shooting like you just brought up, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, what pushes someone to go to that extreme? You have to be almost influenced by other things.
Interesting in the book, when I read it, I don't remember any references talking about enhancements on medications and stuff like that. But this is strictly just the personalities you talked about. And I'm sure that with any kind of medication, it would enhance any of these things if it wasn't done properly. Mm-hmm. That would be my guess. I have no medical background on that either, so I can't say other way. But yeah, I would say probably. I mean, medication can do really good things, but if you get the wrong dosages of the wrong stuff, it can also do really bad things. So, it's got to be monitored, and it could change things quite quickly. So I got, what else I put here? I got the most of it I talked. So they can be argumentative, like hyper suspicious, just plain dangerous. So no one knows what will be the final thing that puts them over the edge to do or is going to be. But they're definitely a dangerous personality. So one to kind of watch. If you're in a relationship with somebody like this, you have to be very careful what you say and what you do, right? And you want to calculate ways to get out. And before we're done tonight, we're going to talk about some things that you can do to help protect yourself, and not so much on a physical level, but more on how to kind of get safety to somewhere else. And then our last one, the last personality is the predator, right? Predators have one goal, and their goal is exploitation of you, right, or somebody else, right? They do what they do what we can't easily and repeatedly. They don't have that. They have no emotions. They have no empathy, right? They live to plunder, rob, victimize, or destroy, right? They see people as opportunities or obstacles, right? And it doesn't always have to be from a physical onset of killing somebody. It could be as simple as robbing your parents or your grandparents for money. Right? They don't care how they get it. They're going to take it from wherever they want. Right? They have no emotional attachments, no conscience, no morals, and no laws or ethics really affect them. So if they, if the example I put down was if they need sex, they'll rape you. If they need money, they will steal from anyone. Right? Grandparents, parents, friends. They'll do what they need to do to get what they want. Right? They know how to pick their victims, and then do it easily and without thought. And we know this because predators. So for children per se, right? They pick all their victims. Most predators that are picking women know, and they pick their victims ahead of time as well. They know exactly what to look for, right? And they don't have that off switch. There's nothing in their head going, okay, I shouldn't do that. They don't care.
That's scary.
Yeah, right. When you think of a predator, think of a hurricane or a tornado, right? Because everything they do, they're going to leave a massive debris field behind them. They don't care what they wreck on the way through. That was kind of some good examples in there. Some characteristics they'll be intelligent, they can be friendly, they can be attractive, they can be quiet, they can be reclusive, right? They can be diligent, or any of the other characteristics you can think of, right? They can play all ends of the spectrum, right, to get what they want, right? Being successful and having friends does not preclude them from being a predator, right? And examples of that, like Bernie Madoff, right? The financial guy that took everybody's money there, and the Jerry Sandusky thing in the States as well, or Sandusky. So because all those boys at the college or university over years. So they take, but they don't give. They're cold, callous, calculating, controlling, right? And they think they have godlike power. So, and then the effects they'll have on us is they can turn your life upside down, right? They can derail your dreams or aspirations, right? They can be embezzlers, bank robbers, pickpockets, car thieves, and basically anything else you want to put there, right? They're common. So that kind of predators, like it's the shortest part of the talk. It's probably one of the most dangerous people in the talk, right? So they'll definitely do what they need to do to get it done. They don't really give a shit about what they do or who they do it to, right? And it's not always on a physical like.
Was there a percentage of the population that they thought were predators, or did it not really get down to that?
There was no stats in the book on any of that. So, Joe Navarro was a FBI profiler. So he took this from all his years of what he dealt with in the field and kind of put it into a book, and it made a lot of sense. It just, if this helps anybody out by listening to it, then perfect, right? I mean, I suggest reading the book if you want to go through it, but it was definitely eye-opening for some things, right? And then what I put here, so things that can help you in these situations, or if it's going like there. So, identify that the reality that you're in, right? Gain knowledge, observe what's going on, don't just watch, right? Trust your gut feelings. We both know that our gut feelings are telling us things for a reason. And if we follow that, 9 times out of 10, it's going to get us out of trouble before it happens, right? And know the difference between niceness and goodness, right? Somebody being nice and somebody being good, right? Control space and distance. This goes right back into our training, right? So control space and distance, control time, right? Cut the emotional strings if you can, right? Access how much and how often that you'll have contact with this person, right? Time and location matter as well, right? And we can think of many different things where you want to meet somebody, where you don't want to meet somebody with these personalities, right? Make yourself inviting. No, don't make yourself inviting to dangerous pursuits. I wrote that down wrong. Jeez, take that out of the whole thing. What I meant to say is probably don't make yourself inviting to these dangerous personalities, not the other way around, right?
Also, people looking at their phones like without being situational aware. That's
and they watch for all that, So don't wait too long and put it in place. Now, and then what I put here at the very end was he had some stuff in here if you're in actual danger, to make some really good notes here. And it was like, get professional help, right? Don't hesitate for that. Don't face them alone, especially if it's one of the ones that's could cause you some kind of physical harm or even worse, right? Plan an exit strategy, raise some escape money so you have money to kind of move away or get away with, right? Address your financial matters. Expect the great awakening, and basically that's that moment where you're out of that situation and you realize you stepped away from it, and you get that moment of relief, right? And then carrying on from that. I thought it was kind of cool when he said that. And then remember, you're not alone. Like this has happened to many people, right? And then claim and maintain distance from whatever's happened, right? And keep getting the professional help that you need. So I just think it's interesting how, the thing we didn't talk about too was like any of these personalities, there's 4 of them basically, but they can be in combination.
That's what I was going to mention. I was going to ask, because I didn't read the book, if they could be a blend. I bet everyone's a blend of something.
So, 1 is bad, 2 is worse, and 3 is hell, basically. So, if you had a narcissistic person with a paranoid or emotionally unstable or predator, like any of those 4 you mix in there, obviously it's going to be a lot worse. So it was interesting to read the book, and I got a lot of good information on it. I just wanted to go through it and pass it on, and we have these little chats, and it's good to.
It was fun.
good to figure things out. So we can take this further at some point as well. We can dig a little deeper into the predator, which there's lots of stuff. Like Tim Kennedy stuff is good. There's a lot of really good things out there that address these things. But we already teach courses that address these problems, and at different levels and different times. Because I think that a self-defense course, as you and I both know, it's not the fix-all to anything, because it's a very short period of time you're learning something, and we can teach somebody like awareness and how to create space in that amount of time. That's it, right? You and I both have a lot of training that will go way beyond that. But I mean, people have to physically and mentally go into that moment and be able to do it. And it's not easy, but I think, we've talked about this a bunch of times, but being able to create the space to get away, that's doable. That's possible, right? Situational awareness is possible, but every situation will be different, and you don't know until you're actually in them. That's the part nobody knows. And you don't know if you're going to have the fight, flight, or freeze syndrome.
Yeah. And everybody needs to train and stay healthy, and you have to be consistent in training. I mean, unless you have years of our experience, and even then you have to, it's a perishable skill. So, but you can't really force people to do that. And we live in a situation that they need to do that.
Yeah, I mean, the world's not a safer place by any means than it was before. Things are happening at a much more rapid pace, and people that go outside and go into the public, I mean, there's random attacks that happen. I mean, and it's not very often, but it does happen. But I mean, what we don't see, you and I don't see, is what happens behind closed doors in people's houses, right? That's where things happen. And that falls in. So that's where this book comes into big play, is in relationships, because most people don't know what happens to people when they, outside of maybe their work or wherever else, they only see them at those places. So, but yeah, I mean, training is key. You got to train, right? And like we've talked about this before, anything that we do is perishable. And as we get older, those skill sets, no matter how much we want to keep them, they change, right? I don't move as fast as I did when I was 20. I don't heal and recover as quick either. So, but I think that we're definitely on top of where we need to be for training, but we want to make sure people are also getting that training to they can start with us and then continue on. There's lots of places to train at to make it a much more regular kind of thing, which is important.
Yeah, no, that's what you've been doing for 2 decades plus, I think. Yeah.
And it's fun. We have a lot of fun training.
Well, I mean, in the as a use, I don't know if people watching this for the first time, but I'm a use of force instructor for the Canadian military and taser instructor. And every 2 years, I have to update the use of force every 1 year. Mm-hmm. And 90% of the police officers I worked with in the military didn't train.
Right.
So that means that they would be completely dependent on their weapons if they came down to something, which should be your last resource, not your primary one.
Of course.
And if you're lacking size and skill on top of that, yeah, I don't understand why we don't do it. And in the Army, back in the day when I was in, I wanted it to be recommended, and then you can get rewarded with it. We had a personal review, like a report card the military had. It was called PER. And I was trying to get our chain of command to like acknowledge that people are going on their own time to go to jiu-jitsu, karate, and whatever they were going to do. That should be rewarded because it's relevant to your job on a daily basis, but they didn't want to see it that way. So,
yeah, I mean, 100%. I mean, if officers had training budgets to go train in places and actually get, and then it wouldn't really matter. I mean, I guess in some ways it would matter where, but in other ways, getting the physical training just to have that touch and movement, all that stuff, it's just going to make them better at what they do, and then they won't rely so heavily on that weapon if it goes into a really bad position or place. I mean, obviously that weapon's got to be there, and they got to be able to use it, but they should have the other skills to back it with as well before then. So it's not an easy job, especially if you're working in law enforcement right now. Would not be a happy place. There's so many things, so many outside factors that contribute to what they can and can't do.
Yeah, and if you do something, the onus is on you to prove yourself innocent. So then it's also that stress. And when you think you're doing the right thing, may have been excessive or wrong altogether, and then your career's on the line. It's a tough career for sure. I don't miss it.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna wrap this up for us.
Okay.
So thanks again, Matt. That was another great talk, and we'll get this up. It'll be on the website soon on the FSD Nation part. So thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll see you guys soon. Thanks again, Matt.
Yep. Thank you.